Hi everyone, it's Charlie Webster here. Thanks so much for joining us for My Sporting Mind, the podcast that's all about opening up the conversation around mental health, both in sport and life. Season 2 is proudly supported by sportinglife.com, the home of expert analysis and insight for racing, football, golf, and much more. And today we're heading into the world of horse racing. I'm super excited to welcome champion flat jockey Oisin Murphy to the podcast. Oisin, welcome along.
Hi, Charlie. It's super to be part of this. I'm really excited to chat to you, and hopefully we'll get through things.
I'm glad. I normally give people a bit of a clap, so I feel bad that I haven't done it because it might seem that I'm like favoriting other people. So welcome along. I just realised.
No, you're very kind.
I know before we actually started recording, I asked you what you've been up to because I was looking at your Instagram and I was very jealous of like pictures of South Africa. How's things been over this last while? Because I can imagine it's been a tough period for you.
Yeah, it's the first time in my life I've had nothing to do and no focus. So I tried to. First of all, I suppose I spent a couple of weeks not really knowing what to do. A lot of time in bed, getting up at different times every day. No structure to my life. And then my sister suggested that we could go to South Africa as we have family and friends there. So I came back from there about 3 weeks ago, and it was a fantastic experience. I was never interested in going on a safari, but I managed to see the big five, and I have a different appreciation for wildlife having been there. And the scenery is incredible. We went down to Cape Town, having been in Johannesburg, Nelspruit, Mala Mala, Kruger National Park, and from mountains, the seaside, restaurants. Although we're under very tight restrictions with COVID, etc. But it was great to go and see it.
Yeah, I can imagine it was nice to just get away from things and separate yourself from what's been going on and have a completely different environment. Just going back to what you were saying about structure, it's something that's featured a lot in this podcast and how important it is to have structure in mental health. I'm just going to give a bit of background if you don't mind, because some people might
Sure.
not realize that you were given a 3-month ban after testing positive for cocaine, but then the ban was reduced because it was found out that you didn't actually take cocaine, but it was through contamination. And you've had that 3-month ban, which comes up in March the 11th. And I think you were saying that you're racing on March the 12th. So just going back to that period of time about saying, you didn't have a structure the first time in your life because you've raced horses since you were young. And I mean, the first time you were on a horse was like 2 years old. And then all of a sudden that's taken away. How did it affect your mental health?
I suppose to begin with, when I realized that I was facing a suspension, so it would have been August, and I didn't know a time scale for if I was going to be suspended, when I would be suspended, and for how long. So that was quite stressful, and I didn't ride very well in August. Normally, I ride maybe 6 or 7 horses a day, and on average, I ride between 15 and 22% rides to winners. And in August, that took a major dip, and obviously, as a result of that, my confidence and my whole kind of outlook on life does as well. Uh, I remember not sleeping for days on end, or you might get an hour here, you wake up there, your mood changes, you don't want to speak to anybody. Whenever you feel down, people say, oh, you need to voice your thoughts, and the best thing to do is speak, but sometimes you're not in the mood to speak. And I watched lots of motivational videos on YouTube, so many celebrities, Denzel Washington being one, really can get you in the mood and get you out of bed if you watch his videos. So I did that a little bit, and I stopped feeling sorry for myself. That's the way I like to put it. And I got through August, and September took off. I won a Group 1, and my strike rate improved to above 20%. The Jockeys Championship, which normally runs from May to October, due to COVID, was extended to the end of November or mid-November, early November, apologies. So having led the whole way from flagfall in this Jockeys Championship, which means so much to me, it's like winning the Premiership in football, or in other sports, maybe Lewis Hamilton being the Formula One thing. I'm not suggesting that horse racing is any way like this, but to me, that's how important it is. And um, the guys got very close to me, the boys behind me, William Buick and Tom Marquand. And again, October, things didn't look so well. I knew I was going to miss certain parts of the season because I had to travel abroad to America to ride in the Breeders' Cup. And um, I had all this drug case going on. Every week or every 2 weeks, you get letters in the post. And I knew I had great people behind me, from Qatar Racing who employ me to all the people that put me on these majestic animals on a day-to-day basis. I thought everyone was fighting my corner, but it was still very much up in the air. And then on October 1st, or around that date, I think it was October 1st, I was riding on a very cold winter's evening at Kempton. And what people must understand is, unlike other athletes, I ride every single day, and I ride in more races than anyone else in Europe. So the workload is quite strenuous. And obviously, when you're going for a jockey's championship or any other sort of thing, you don't take your foot off the accelerator. But yet I have this case hanging over me, and it's a huge burden, and also good horses to ride. So uh, I thought the season was going to be defined in one or two ways. I was going to get my drugs thing at some stage, try and put it out the back of my mind. And if I didn't win the Jockeys Championship, it would have been a season where I allowed what was going on around me defeat me. And if I could get it over the line, I proved that when most people would have crumbled, or when what I would say most people would have thrown in the towel, or certainly a large majority, I picked myself up off the floor, and no one can do that for you. You've got to do it for yourself. So in October, knowing towards the end of October, William Beale got within 4 winners of me, and I went to Newcastle, which is a 5.5 hour drive from my house, return journey. I'm fortunate enough to have a driver, so we can't add that into the workload. And I rode 4 winners. And the following day at Chelmsford, I had 6 rides or something. I won 4 of them as well. And I was able to, didn't sleep easy that night, but I was able to give myself a little bit of a pat on the back, that having been written off by everyone, the newspapers, not Sporting Life, mind, but the general newspapers, the general public, my own social media accounts, I drifted from being odds-on favourite in the betting to like 3-1 at one stage. That I was able to lift myself up off the ground. That was a good feeling. But it's a very yo-yo roller coaster effect. And when I went to America at the end of October, I was just hoping that I had done enough. And I think I'll give you an opportunity to ask another question. But by the time I rode in my last race, and I haven't ridden since, in Bahrain, I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to ride again or when I would want to race ride again. And I think I'll let you ask questions after that.
No, honestly, it's not about me. I really appreciate you opening up to us, to be honest, and to me about that journey. Because I think there's so many points about what you were saying, because I think we read the newspapers, as you said, and I think in sport and in any profile, public life, actually, the press can very much lift somebody up and pull them straight down again. And there's this scrutiny of you're never allowed, I think, to make a mistake. Yet if we all look at ourselves, we've all made mistakes during our life. I was going to ask you off the back of that, you just said about whether you wanted to get back on a horse. This is something that we'll go back into your childhood in a minute. This is something that you loved and you were brought up with. Like I said, you had horses from a really young age, and were on horses at 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old. Did you think about quitting?
By the time I had my final court case, so there was a medical hearing, and they basically absolved me of the fact that I had taken cocaine myself. And then you've another few weeks and you wait for your actual hearing. And I was obviously pleased not to get my full sentence of 6 months. I was a bit disappointed not to get 0, but they gave me 3, and I thanked them for considering my case or whatever. But I just felt like I came to England in October 2012, and I've given it absolutely everything from the beginning. The highs, traveling the world, riding incredible horses, meeting brilliant people, and everything that comes with it. The dinner parties, meeting famous people. It's incredible. It's super, super privileged. But I put myself in that position, and then I felt like the world had turned against me over something I didn't really mean to happen. And and where do you say that it's all about what makes you happy? But anyway, I probably spent a couple of weeks thinking about what I should do, and of course, when I say I wouldn't get back on a horse, I mean, of course, I'd ride around the roads and go watch show jumping and ride as a hobby. But whether I wanted to race ride again, and this is something I haven't really touched on, certainly not publicly. Uh, but I wasn't entirely comfortable because the higher you climb, the further you fall. And
Yeah.
I'm twice champion jockey. I was the youngest person ever to win a Japan Cup. Uh, I've tried very hard to do well, and if I do come back, which I very much hope so, I'm hungry, and as hungry as I ever have been. I feel great at the moment as we speak currently. I'm in top spirits, but I need to achieve again. I can't just roll back into the jockey's room and go around like riding 5 horses a day and maybe winning on one. If I if I make it my intent to come back and do well, then I really have to do well. And there are points, and even when things are going well, where I have to force myself out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning. But there was a turning point in mid-December, having been given my my suspension. And for the people watching and listening to this, we haven't rehearsed any of this. I haven't written anything down. This is just my thoughts. Uh, a little boy who my mother is friends with his uncle and has been for many years, 7 years old, has this little grey pony, and she sent me a video from like trotting around this field and jumping his pony over small little fences, and she said that boy has just been diagnosed with leukemia. And I did a little bit of fundraising for him. I don't know how much they raised exactly, but it's irrelevant. Let's say they raised 20 grand or 50 grand for that, whatever charity it is. And I realized that um, however bad I think things are at the moment, it's a hell of a lot worse for so many more people. So I started going to counselling, which I still attend, which was organised through the Sporting Life. And I think, you can sit in these counselling sessions, they can have no effect on you. You've got to listen, you've got to speak, and you've got to run through all the things that you find, that deep down are the issues. So for me, the issues are the workload, but I want that workload. The fact I'm a complete realist, so the self-criticism, when my strike rate isn't where it should be, where I want it to be. I want to be riding at 20% plus. That means 1 in 5 of the horses I ride wins. And I suppose what happens when you're that focused and you're that self-critical is you spend a lot of the time down, and it's how you deal with being down. Um, so on a personal level, it's very easy to open a bottle of wine or a bottle of champagne, and then you have that one, then you have a second one, and then you might feel bad for a few days, so you stay off the drink. But it's a cycle. So trying to deal with all that, I suppose, is kind of where certain people find themselves. And then you watch other things on YouTube because, you know, you find spend when you're down, you spend more time away from people. So you spend more time on your phone and social media, and you know, lots of people go through hardship, and I think everyone does. It's just important to realize it.
I think it's really important to recognize that whatever's happening to you is valid. And I know
Sure.
we can always have people better off and worse off. Because I think we often say, oh, well, you know, like you said about that poor boy who's got leukemia, which is awful. But at the same time, also how you're feeling is also valid. Because I think we often go, oh, well, you know, I've got a roof over my head and some, you know, somebody else might not have. But it doesn't mean like you still don't feel low and have that challenges around mental health. I think it's also really brave to go and see a counsellor. I spent 2 years with a clinical psychologist working through various different things, and I absolutely had to. But I think it's the hardest thing because, like you said, you have to sit there and you have to do the work and you have to reflect, right? And I think it was interesting what you were saying about, you know, if you're feeling low, you can pick up a bottle of wine and it will lift you for that moment and make you feel better, and you can really see those patterns. What do you think is the most important thing you've learned about yourself during this period? Because you were saying about the self-critic, which I think a lot of people have, and I think a lot of people that are professional athletes or really high achievers tend to have that, because I think sometimes it can be a driver.
Yeah, it's my soul. It's my soul driver, and we haven't, you know, nobody can remove that kind of thing from my life. It's important I'm self-critical if I want to keep achieving, because everyone around me uh, is striving to do better. You know, everyone has dietitians, personal trainers. We're all striving to improve all the time. So, and I think a part of the thing is, if you compete in any sports, whether that's amateur level football or you know, even whatever you do, athletics, um, you are always striving to do a bit more than you can, and at times when it's not, when you're not getting to where you want to be, you do one or two things. Um, it invigorates you to work harder, or you throw in the towel, and there are many opportunities to do both. And I think I'd like to send the message that you get lots of people saying that you need to talk and do this and do that, but just one single sentence is don't give up. Things turn around constantly. Uh, Life revolves, and I think that's there in evidence everywhere.
Is that what you say to yourself? Come on, don't give up.
Yeah. Like thankfully I've never had suicidal thoughts or whatever, but you know, when it came to uh, riding again and deciding I wanted to race ride again, I really had to think about that seriously, because there's no point doing something that doesn't make you happy. And certainly over the last 3 years, my happiest times of the day are when I get up in the morning. Well, not initially. I don't think anyone can say that, but when I ride a very good horse and it's never ran or something, so it's completely unraced, like a baby horse, but it shows me that potential that it could be very good, and that's when the dream starts to become. It just that ignites that dream, if that makes sense, and uh, and that's when I was under no pressure. It was completely my own opinion, and I got a massive buzz, and I still do get a huge buzz out of that. And I rode out a couple of days. So when I say ride out, I went to the stables, the trainers I ride for, and sat on a few horses right after Christmas. And this was the game changer for me. I rode a few horses that are no superstars, but I realized very quickly that I can't miss out on this. And jockeys have short careers, you know. You ride until you're 30 or 40 years old. I'm 25 now. Uh, I needed to get back in the thick of the action. And although I still have think 4 weeks before I can ride again. I'm super motivated. I can tell you all the things I want to achieve. I mightn't achieve many of them, but I'm going to try my utmost. I'm in a good place today.
Yeah, it sounds like you've done this full circle. And do you think, in a way, maybe this will make you a better jockey? It will make you have a longer legacy because you can see what it can do when you get to the top of the game. You know, you did very well and people started talking about you, you started winning, and then came with it that pressure and that lifestyle.
Yeah, perhaps. Like I go back to one thing. I said the yo-yo thing earlier. Well, that's down to my mood, but uh, there's also a roller coaster effect that comes with the career of any sports person. And without drawing comparisons, I don't think you can draw many comparisons. Although at the same time, there are certain similarities. But for any sports person watching this outside of anything else, I think Tiger Woods' story is incredible. All the bad press he received, the terrible headlines, they were shocking. They were just to sell newspapers, and now everyone adores him again. So I think that's certainly invigorated me, and you know, whatever is said, people have short memories, and um, reputations are often rebuilt, and one has to be proud of themselves at times anyway.
Most definitely. It's interesting listening to you as well on the self-critic. I've done loads of work on this kind of that inner voice, and you were saying about you need that self-critic, but do you think also it can be really destructive because it has a go at yourself and tells you that you've not done good enough? And I think the really interesting thing about horse racing, I'm not an expert in horse racing. Throughout my career, I've done much more around football, rugby, athletics, boxing, but as a kind of like observer, find it interesting because you lose more than you win.
Sure. And actually, I can cope with that as long as my strike rate's at a certain level.
Right. Okay.
But just to touch on, because I think most people can resonate with this, the sleeping things. You know, when you aim to try and fall asleep at 10:30 at night, and you look at your phone at 2:30 and you're still awake. That isn't uncommon, and I used to worry a lot about how am I going to cope on zero sleep, but your body will find a way, and just I think the fear of not being able to sleep is often worse than not sleeping at all. And I've never listened to somebody talk about that, but I just want to put it out there.
It's true though. I do that. I'm actually doing that at the moment because I'm finding it hard to sleep. And then when I wake up in the morning, it's not necessarily the lack of sleep, it's the worry that I know I've not had enough sleep for what I need to go and do.
Like last night, I slept from 11 all the way through, but I can't tell you the last time I did that. Does that make sense? And when I won the Jockeys Championship in 2019, I went to Spain late October before going to Hong Kong and Japan, and we went for 10 days, and I think I got more than 12 hours sleep for 7 of them. It's just the release, the pressure disappeared, the weight off my shoulders, but suddenly it reappears again. And I was trying to think this week, and also it's another worry, a silly anxiety. Why can't I sleep? What's making me stay awake at night? And I think it's the excitement of feeling like I'm in a good place again, um, and looking forward to getting back. And people that are really interested in racing, March isn't a very exciting month, apart from Dubai World Cup night, which is the last weekend in March. And I've picked up some super rides for the Japanese there. So that's a really welcome surprise. I wasn't guaranteed anything. And then having been going in riding out every morning, so I'm exercising the horses, which I've never done since I was 18 or 19 years of age. It's normally maybe once a week or maximum 3 times a week. But it's allowed me to form a bond with these horses that aren't, most of them aren't super talented. They're not going to put my name in lights or make headlines, but it's special to have a reason to get up in the morning. And that's the first thing. Like, I remember watching another motivational video. They say if you make your bed and brush your teeth every morning, well, then you can tick something off your list. And actually, before I called you today, because I've had periods even when I've got back from South Africa in the last 2 weeks, because nobody's at the top of the world, and remind me to touch on that in a second. But like, I've been making a list of what can I do this evening, and I know the whole of the UK is in lockdown, but I can take the dog for a walk. I'm surrounded by countryside. I can brush the floor. I can make the fire. And they sound like silly things, but once you compile that list, and you don't have to look at it again because it's in the back of your mind, but you know you've achieved something. It's like it's just in the back of your head, and it's mini goals, like one step at a time. Because I don't know how you feel, Charlie, but it's very easy to sit in front of the television all day, feeling sorry for yourself and your mood, however bad it started, even gets worse and worse. So,
Yep. I'm with you on that. And you said about how I feel. I think I definitely go through stages, especially recently, because I'm not a championship jockey and I'm not a professional athlete, but I'm a high adrenaline person who puts a lot on what I'm achieving. So I find it very difficult if I'm not busy. And I have to write those lists as well, because then that's when I get the negative critical thoughts that tell me that I'm not good enough because I haven't done enough that day. So it really helps me write in the list of things. And I think just listening to you, I wonder also, because you've not had that thing that you've always had, which you've done every single day of your life, suddenly it's taken away. And I feel that when, if I can't do my job or I have quieter times, that's when I get quite low. And that's when those intrusive thoughts come in, because I'm not occupied. And I think it's so important to have the list of things that make you feel good about yourself, because part of life is a sense of purpose, right? So even if it's taking the dog for a walk, I think you said cleaning something out, it's like,
yes,
you've done that. Yeah, and you're right. And when you sit and watch the TV all day, it might be the comfort thing you want to do, but it just makes you feel worse about yourself, I think, anyway.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. My idol is Frankie Dettori, and he had a bit of time off riding, 6-month period, and when he came back, not just the racing public, and I can view this because I was there, had written him off. I remember walking into Lingfield Park, which is south of London, one day, and he was sat in the sauna with his legs crossed. He was overweight. He didn't look like a jockey. He looked miserable. He wasn't clean shaven, and for him, obviously, that's completely out of character.
Yeah.
He wasn't speaking to anybody. He was very low, and he had like one ride that day on a complete outsider that was useless. But he kept battling away. He kept forcing himself to go racing. One ride here, one ride there. He wasn't being spoken about in the press. Barely a comment from someone who thought they were funny, saying his career's over. And a couple of months later, turned his career around. He got the job with Al Shikab, Sheikh Johan, started riding for John Gosden, and suddenly from his career, his life, his mood, I suppose his whole mental and physical well-being being demoralized and non-existent, I suppose. We need to use two words for everything I've described there. He managed to climb back up, and for the last 3 years running, he's been #1 jockey in the world, and he's the face of world racing, not alone British racing again, and most sports stars, particularly the golfers and cricketers, are accustomed to Frankie Dettori. So I really admire him and also draw on him for inspiration sometimes. Although we're different people, no two people are the same. Nobody's going to feel the same way about things, but I think it's important draw on things like that.
Yeah.
Situations.
And he's somebody that I think, listening to you, I can relate so much of what you're saying, and I'm in a very different position of you. But then I think it's probably helpful for you to have somebody like Frankie who's can relate to a lot more of the kind of those things that are relevant, specific to being a jockey. Has he helped you during this period then? And if so,
Yeah,
like what's the advice been?
yeah, literally. So he keeps telling me not to go off the rails. I think there was a lot of people very worried when I suddenly found myself a free time. I broke my collarbone once, and I took 22 days off. Uh, I'm after 2 months off now. Uh, People were worried, and he was one of them, and as was my employers and lots of people. And even now I get text messages. Uh, People just checking in to see that I haven't done anything stupid. I haven't been drinking excessively, etc. Which is very kind of them. But it gets repetitive, and people have your best interests at heart. But as soon as I see a message or someone's phone number come up, sometimes I just won't answer, or depending on my mood, of course, or read the text message. So I feel like in the last few weeks it's been a bit different, but certainly before Christmas, that's how it was.
I think you make a really good point, and you said it a bit earlier as well, that I think when you're in that place, you actually tend to isolate yourself more. Like I'm not somebody who would naturally reach out, and actually, if I'm having a bad day, I tend to not want to speak to people, even though that might actually help me at the time. I can't. I just don't want to. And I think I can relate in terms of messages. I don't want it to bring it about me, but I wanted to tell you this thing because I was critically ill 4 years ago, and I came out of hospital, and people were texting me all the time. And in the end, it just got really, as much as I know they love
Monotonous.
me, it got real because it was like, how are you? How are you? And it's like, I'm not okay. What do you want me to
Say,
keep saying to you? Yeah. And I felt it was a pressure on me to almost lie about how I genuinely, really deep down was feeling. So it's very different, but I kind of can relate to that scenario. Um, what is it? I'd love to know. Maybe for people that they're struggling at the moment, what is it that is making you get up? Is getting you through that day, or was getting you through that day? Over the last 2 months.
yeah, I think so. My sister moved in with me kind of last summer when the whole drug thing came out. I think she took it upon herself more to keep an eye on what I was doing and whatever else. And um, I think it's a hard one to answer, Chai. What kept me going through from July to December? Uh, the want and the willingness to prove that uh, this wasn't going to break me. Although I, I didn't feel great. I was very, I was very unhappy most days. Like one winner or two winners isn't enough. There's there was nothing capable of fulfilling me. Um, and I think after that, it was the chance to do other things and see a little bit of the world, raise money for charity, um, ride horses for fun, and then now uh, it's the chance to come back and try and prove to people again, don't write me off, please. Give me another chance. And thankfully, Qatar Racing and Andrew Golding and most of my sponsors and ambassador roles haven't turned their back on me, which is great. So I owe something to them. Life is precious, and you see so many times people are tormented with illnesses like yourself, and I think I realize that I'm lucky that I can get up, walk around, go outside. I'm I'm a physically healthy young person, and by taking the right steps and by making myself fall into a certain routine, my mental health can be perfectly healthy as well.
So you're actually very inspirational. Talking to you, you are, especially at 25. I think you've obviously done a lot of grappling with your own mind and yourself. Do you think that that's something that was always there? Because I've seen your mom being interviewed a few times about your career, and she, has said that you've got that grit and that determination anyway, and that drive. And I remember watching an interview of you when you first moved over to England, which you must have been, what, 17?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you could tell you got that kind of determination. Where's that come from? Because
I'm
it's
not
where was
sure.
that there before? You've had this. Sorry, I was going to say you've had this period that's kind of happened to you in this really tough time, which I think makes anybody, look at themselves. But it seems like you had, you were the youngest. You were so young. When you've done so incredibly well. Like, I just wonder where that all came from in the first place.
Yeah, my parents did a super job of trying to raise, and a child at a certain age, 14, 15, 16, has their own choices to make on what they want to do with their life, and mine was made very easy. My parents put me in the right direction, but they made me acutely aware that to get anywhere needs very hard work, a lot of hard work, and a bit of luck as well. And although my uncle Jim, so Jim Cullity, won 3 Gold Cups as a national hunt jockey and 1 as a trainer, he achieved so much. He won an English Grand National, or a Grand National. He's basically only won the race that most people, non-racing fans, would know about. And he used to point out to me, because I lived with him when I was 15, 16, that I was, the chances were I wasn't going to make it as a jockey. And then I went to Tommy Stacks, which is a trainer.
Sorry, take you back. The chances were you weren't going to make it as a jockey?
Yeah.
Is in the fact that very few people do?
Yeah, very few people do. And I mightn't be good enough. It doesn't matter how much hard work I could put in. I needed the right opportunities. And he really motivated me in a very nice way. And when I was sent to Tommy Stacks at age 15, there was 2 other boys. I don't want to bore people, but there was 2 other boys. This is in Cashel in Ireland, who were more talented than me. Yet I'd been riding since I was 2 years old, but on like show ponies, not on racehorses. And it was so apparent that they were better than me. And then I went to Aidan O'Brien's, which is like one of the best trainers in the world. He was really kind to take me on when I was 16, 17. And I'm a similar age to his children, so we became good friends, and suddenly I started to improve. And then I went to Andrew Balding's, which is obviously just outside Newbury in Berkshire. I made the trip across. I was 17. I'd never been away from home, really. I'd been in a foreign country maybe twice in my life. And I used to cry every day, ring my mother up. I can imagine I gave her a headache. It's very unfortunate to admit this now, but it's also quite lighthearted. And there was 10 of us. There was 10 boys, similar age to me, who wanted to be a jockey. I thought, this is impossible. I've got absolutely no chance. So I rang my uncle Jim and I said, I want to come back to Ireland, and I've got no chance here. And he said, no, you're staying there. I probably cried a little bit more, and I got my head down. And then 6 months later, I got my license. And then by September that year, I rode 4 winners and 1 card. And 2 days later, I had ridden 6 winners in a row. And then suddenly, people started to talk about me in the press that I might have a chance as a jockey. So that was kind of my kind of thing. And I was never more focused. So in those times when I wanted to be champion apprentice, which is like a junior jockey, I don't know how to, maybe on the academy in football and rugby, etc. I wanted to be champion apprentice so badly. I wouldn't socialize very much, although I had friends, but I was very focused. I wasn't drinking at all. And the drive was really there. And then 2014, I was champion apprentice. 2015, I found it a little bit tough. I was now competing with the best jockeys, the Ryan Moores, the Frankie Dettoris, the Christophe Soumillons, in other sports terms, the really, really top ones. And I wasn't as good as them. And that was a bit tough to take. So I worked a bit harder. I started getting lessons on a mechanical horse from an ex-jockey who won the Derby, which is the mecca of horse racing from a flat jockey's point of view. And I improved a little bit more. And then 2017, I kind of got into the top 100 in the world. I won my first Group 1 races. 2018, I was number 2 in the world behind Frankie Dettori. And then 2019 was good as well, breaking statistically and numerically kind of all the records that I had wanted to break. I won a Japan Cup, and I was great in front of 110,000 people. I was driving through Tokyo afterwards, and the horse and I were on all the kind of billboards around Shinjuku and Shibuya stations. Millions of people passed through there every day. So got back to the hotel, and all the staff were out there clapping. Try and, when you feel really low, you try and recall all these good memories, but they're just non-existent. And then 2020, COVID happened, so everyone's life took a massive turn. I don't know many people that benefited out of COVID, by the people that, by the companies that make PPE. And
or masks.
Yeah,
or
make
face
masks and sanitizers and 2020, sorry, I slipped a lot in the world rankings. I was down to like 6th by Guineas weekend in June, but I won the Kipco 2000 Guineas, which was my first classic. So that was a big trail. I rode like 7 winners in that meeting at Newmarket over the 3 or 4 days. I felt good, and I felt good throughout June. I was happy to be back. We had a interruption like all other sports during COVID, and then I got that news in July. I just didn't know what to do, but that was one chapter in the book, and I think we've covered the chapters in between, and I hope by March 12 we finish that book on the first 7 years of my career, and anyone who's listened to this has a little bit of an insight into the ride that I can take them along, not on the back of a horse, but in a personal feeling sort of view. And the next 7 years mightn't be 7 years. Maybe I'll retire when I'm 30, but we'll have some more fun memories.
I think it just made me think that I bet it'd be so interesting for you to listen back and watch this, say, in like 5 years' time.
Yeah, maybe I might be embarrassed to admit
No.
of my many faults, but I can promise you, nobody, even it doesn't matter what sports you're into or who you idolize, be it actor, actress, singer, songwriter, nobody is faultless and are seamless. Just some people are capable of voicing their feelings, and yeah, this afternoon I am.
I think it takes a lot of courage and strength to do that. So I think you'd be proud looking back. I wanted to ask you a few more things about I suppose like racing itself and yourself. What about the relationship? I just wonder the relationship you have with your horse and the psychology of that. I'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah, I don't see, or I've never met many of the horses I've ridden before.
Really?
Before I get on them in the paddock. So if I have 1,000 rides in the year, that's probably at least 500 different horses. I will know less than 100 of them. So I need to get to know them quite quickly, but it's nice. It's a good feeling. So we have a little bit of a chance in the paddock when these horses walk around and show you, the spectator, what they look like and give you an opportunity to decide if you want to place a bet, etc. And then when I'm cantering to the start, so I might decide I'm going to go very slow on this fella because he's a little bit keen, and I want to, you know, reserve as much energy as possible. Or I might go a little bit fast to the start because I think this fella is lazy and he needs to wake up, or he's a bit of a scratchy mover, so I want to get him moving better. It's like you doing a decent warm up before you go for a run or something. And then when they're in the stalls or before they go in the stalls, they'll circle a little bit. So all the time I'm trying to pick up on their behavior, whether they're nervous, if they actually like me. Some of them might resent humans a little bit. So I'll make an effort to be really, really kind to them and try and sweet talk them, but obviously in a different way before the race starts. And then I'm just all the time looking for certain things. I'm assessing how that horse might handle the going, the distance, um, if they look well in their coat, how much condition they're carrying, whether they look very fit or they look a little bit fat, before the stalls even open. And then in the race, once the gates open and we all get in a racing situation, I'll have to decide if I think we're going quickly or slowly, whether I'm going to move a little bit later in the race, because I think the race might slow down in front of me and I don't want to hit the front too soon and then get collared on the line, so a closer comes past me towards the finish. It's difficult to explain, but I'll do my very best. Everything that's going through my mind. Lots of our tracks in Britain, unlike other countries, are very undulating, and it's important to try and balance the horse. Remember, this horse is, most of them are between 450 and 550 kilo. When I'm riding, I'm no more than 55 kilo undressed. So it's a lot for me to try and contain, along with the energy and the relationship I formed with this horse. So without going on too much, I make an effort to get inside his head and hope that we can form a little bit of a partnership for those. I'm probably on their backs less than 6 minutes in total.
That's unbelievable, because I often think I do a lot of sport myself, but I've definitely got this control element in myself and I do a lot of endurance sports, and I think I'd find it hard that I'd have to rely on something else and not just my own strength or my own ability or my own mental attitude, because I think you've got to rely also on that jockey and that relationship. It must be such a unique feeling. You mentioned about weight. You said 55 kilograms. The other thing I wanted to ask you is about how do you find that pressure, or has it always been natural for you around the weight restriction, which is quite unique, I suppose, like to cycling, boxing, but also being a jockey? Because that, I don't know, is that what's your natural weight?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about this as well.
If you feel okay, of course, because I can't imagine you're 55 kilograms, and it's just interesting because I'm quite interested in behaviors around this, and it must be hard to make sure there's not like almost a compulsive behavior in a relationship with food, because you have to get down to 55 kilograms. And I think there's those stories of like people having saunas and I spent a lot of time in the boxing world and inducing vomit and things like that, only if you feel comfortable talking about it.
Sure. So when I was 15 years old, maybe 14 years old, I was at Killarney races, and a very famous horse racing guy, let's just say that, told me I was too heavy to be a flat jockey when he asked me what weight I was. And I was 7 stone 12. And I was, so for people who aren't aware, what's that in kilo? About 49 kilos. And that really broke my heart. So, sorry, I've caught myself. That really broke my heart. So I stopped eating a little bit, a lot actually. I used to try and eat like one meal a day, and then might not eat anything for 2 days maybe, and then you have a binge. So you create this cycle And then what happens is your metabolism slows down and your mood deteriorates. And at 16 years or 15, 14, 15, 16, those 3 years I can talk about initially, your mood deteriorates and you end up getting heavier because the binge eating starts. You're not eating the right things, your body's starving, you hold on to everything. Then I started sweating in the back. Now I'm a long way off being a jockey at this stage, and I'm sweating in the back for what reason? So then your body holds on to more water because it knows that you're probably, first of all, not going to hydrate properly, and secondly, you're going to sweat. That was fine. I battled with that, for a couple of years, and then I came to England, and there wasn't really a scales in Andrew Bowling's apprentice kind of hostel situation, so didn't really know what way there was. And then he said, it's time for you to go on your apprentice course. You're big enough and bold enough now to try and be a jockey. So I went to my apprentice course and I was 9 stone. And I'm afraid that's 57 kilo. That is too heavy to be a jockey, to be a flat jockey. So they gave me my license anyway, but only because I was attached to Andrew Bowling, who's like the best person to be with if you want to be a flat jockey. But they shouldn't have, realistically. I was like way outside the guidelines. But they did this DEXA bone scan. They were happy enough with all that sort of thing that my bones were healthy and I had enough calcium, etc. I wasn't going to break easily. So I started working on my weight, running at night. I got it down a little bit. Within 6 weeks of being 9 stone, I had my first rides and I was doing 7 stone 12. So I'd lost more than 6 kilos in 6 weeks. Started riding. I managed to keep that off for basically the majority of my apprenticeship. I would walk around within 3 kilos of that. I was like waking up 52, 53 kilos every day, which I was happy with. I was working very hard now. You're riding 3 or 4 horses in the morning, driving yourself racing because you don't have a driver at that stage, or you share a lift. Going racing, riding slow horses, maybe nicking a winner or two a week, doing your best though. But this is how it is for everyone. And then obviously I get a little bit bigger and stronger, and I found myself the last couple of years not struggling with my weight much at all. I normally wake up between 55 and 56 kilo. I'm in a privileged position that I don't do light weights. For me, light weights are like 54 kilos very regularly. I do it every weekend in Japan, but I'm riding horses that are really, really fast and they win normally. And if I do it in England, it's because I think they'll win. Or in Britain, it's because I think they'll win. I don't know if I have blood on my thing. I've cut my finger, I say.
Oh my God, that's quite...
I cut it this morning. I've reopened it, scratching it. Apologies. I hope no one's afraid of blood. So yeah, basically on this break that I've had, having had my weight pretty stable for long periods of time, I got up to, I think, about 65 kilos, which is 10.5 stone. So I basically put on between 8 and 10 kilos in 2 months. And yeah, it's been a struggle to get back off, but it's also been a motivation. I've been going to the gym every day. Slightly fear that I carry a lot more muscle than some people. So I've got to be very strict on what I'm eating at the moment. I'm basically having an orange at breakfast, a protein shake at lunch, but it has everything I need in it to survive. And then vegetables in the evening, but the overground ones, try and stay away from the underground ones.
Okay.
So it's pretty limited what I can eat at the moment, but a lot of cabbage, a lot of spinach, broccoli, mushrooms, and it's coming off me, but slowly. You see my face is still quite chubby, but I have 4 weeks from today, so nobody's weight is perfect. Nobody will go through life, whether you're a boxer or a footballer. When you have time off and you become less motivated to exercise, you will balloon. And you won't feel great about yourself. Body image probably affects the vast majority of people more than anything else. I don't think many people look in the mirror and think, "Oh my goodness, I'm beautiful." So so certainly when I couldn't fit in my trousers and shirts anymore, I knew I needed to start losing weight, and I've begun. I was 61.5 kilos this morning, so I'm still a long way off being a jockey, but I've got about another 5.5, 6.5 to lose, so I can do it. But it's hard work. I'm today in the gym. I did 500-meter sprints on the bike, and I did 8 kilometers at 11 kilometers an hour on the treadmill. I did these squat ball things. I don't know, lean up against the wall, against sitting on a squat ball, and I don't know, all these strange things that I'm not really used to doing. But they say that's going to make me lose weight, so anything that'll help at the moment.
Oh dear, it's interesting hearing you talk about that process. I fear I could carry on asking you a lot of questions, and I feel like I've been talking to you for a long time and your finger's bleeding. Are we going to see you in Cheltenham?
I think we're going to do a preview for Cheltenham.
Okay.
I normally do a bit for ITV and Sporting Life at the actual meeting. But this year, obviously with COVID, I think it's highly unlikely. But yeah, it's super exciting. For me as a racing fan, I'd just like to point out it's the most exciting week of the year, because I'm not involved personally, and there's such a great build up, and the horses are so good. Yeah, nothing beats it. I've been to Wimbledon finals, Champions League finals. I've done the lot, but Cheltenham is, and it depends on your preference. I'm just telling you.
Champions League finals.
Yeah.
Versus Cheltenham.
Yeah, Cheltenham's a different league.
I've been to both, and I have to say the atmospheres are incredible in both. But I think I'm a massive football fan from a young age, so I think that affects my sway.
Well, I fell asleep during the Wimbledon final, so yeah.
I was talking about Champions League, not Wimbledon final.
Okay.
Before we go, I know you've touched on so much, and I've really loved our conversation. But what would you say? Is there like one piece of advice you would give anyone? I know we've gone through a lot of stuff. Is there one thing that you think would help people at the moment, or that's helped you?
Yeah, it's very easy saying never give up, but there isn't enough included in that sentence. But at the same time, there's lots included. I think you need to hit rock bottom to climb yourself back up, and although nobody wants to feel that badly or in that way, sometimes you've got to let yourself get there to enjoy things again, and don't fear. Nobody is top of the world at times, and I think I gave.
Oh yeah, you were going to tell us about that. You were going to say what you said. Remind me about the top of the world thing.
Yeah, it was Frankie. It was the Frankie story that I mentioned. It was him, but you know, it's different for everyone. Nobody's going to go through the exact same feelings, but when you are feeling down, you may not want to talk, but remember there are people there willing to listen and wanting to feel your problems or hear your problems, because I promise you, sometimes hearing somebody else's problems makes you feel better yourself, and that sounds terrible, but the case in point is that poor child with leukemia. I realized that he's in a worse situation than me, much worse, and I owed it to him and my family, and more so than anything myself, to lift myself up and create a routine.
Thank you. I think that's really important. Never give up. And you've got masses of potential, so use it. That's my bit to you. Thanks so much for your time, Oisin. It's been incredible talking to you, and I definitely can't wait to see what happens next in your career and when you come back.
Thanks very much, Charlie. Don't
forget to check out our previous episodes on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to check out our previous episodes on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. There are loads more episodes on the way. Remember to visit sportinglife.com, the home of expert analysis and insight for racing, and your home for the Cheltenham Festival. And remember, you can reach out if you're really struggling, as me and Oisin have been talking about. There are charities such as Mind, the Samaritans, and Sport in Mind. They're just a phone call away. People do understand and want to help. And you can also text SHOUTS, which is on 85258 if you don't want to speak to anybody on the phone. And you can also contact me on social media too. Take care, and we'll speak again soon.